coming from on the right track. And I want to tell you that I appreciate you so much. Today, we'll be learning from Chris. Chris comes with a lot of experience for young people. And he's a mentor, he's an entrepreneur, and he's a leader. And he will be able to let us know very important contexts for us to be leaders today. And I want you to have your writing notes ready and be able to engage and be ready to ask him questions. Frankly, I think he can handle any of that. And if you have any responses to him, do not do not hesitate to raise your virtual hands. Drop your questions in the chat. I know that because of the cost of data, you may not have your cameras on, but feel free to quickly unmute yourself and ask questions. I have no doubt in his capacity to handle whatever questions comes out from here. If you're asking yourself, what is Precious Fountain Foundation? And you want to be a part of what we do, Precious Fountain Foundation is an idea dedicated to resolving defective areas of education. And part of what we do is to teach young leaders who may be emerging from universities or who have just finished universities or in universities in developing countries. We teach leadership as a significant factor in your development as a person. And then we know that with individual developments from people of developing countries, our countries effectively become armed with the resources it needs to develop. We believe here that creating human capital is more important than every other development focus that our countries have, whether they are building roads, building bridges, that's fine, but we believe in developing human capital, and that is why you are here. And we are grateful to have you. If you want to join what we do, we have opportunities on our website for you to join. Francis will be sharing the links for you to contact us with, whether on social media, whether via email. If you want to inbox any of us, please do so immediately. If there is anything you need from any of us as Precious Fountain Foundation, you have significant questions for us, you want to join us from whatever part of the world you are in, please let us know. On that note, I will be heading back to Francis, and I'll be looking forward to today's presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Uncle Sob, for that wonderful introduction. So before I'll be inviting the moderator for this session, I just want to cast our minds back to the previous days. On the first day, we looked at the concepts of leadership and resilience and how they are connected. And Mr. Emmanuel Abalo did justice to that. Why on the second day, we were able to look at the essence of building resilient capacity as leaders. So as a leader, in whichever position you find yourself in, why do you need to build your resilience as a leader? So we did that on the second day. And yesterday, we had a session that we looked at the skill set. I believe you were all equipped with the skills that you need, like emotional intelligence to be resilient in tough times. So today is going to be another wonderful session because we believe that teaching should not just be about the theory or telling you, okay, this is what you can do. So we are going to be looking at case studies of leaders or people who have excelled and they have shown some kind of resilience in their lifestyle. So our speaker is going to do justice to that. Already, I believe in him, and just as my boss has said. So I'll be inviting on the moderator for the day in person of Ms. Deborah Fajobi, who is going to be introducing our speaker as he proceed with his presentation. So Deborah, you can have the floor of the mic now. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Fajobi Deborah. I am also a PFA volunteer, and we'll be having our facilitator in person of Mr. Chris Wilson, who will be speaking to us on building resilient capacity as a 21st century leader. I'll just be giving a brief introduction about our facilitator for today. Chris Wilson is an ex-helicopter pilot and aircraft maintenance engineer of 14 years. Keynote speaker, 2 times author, entrepreneur, and community builder. He has spent over 14 years as a commercial helicopter pilot and an aircraft maintenance engineer. While proud of his aviation success, Chris is passionate about entrepreneurship. He is a mentor at EAUBC, Entrepreneurship at the University of British Columbia, and LOI, League of Innovators, Canada's largest startup accelerator for entrepreneurs under 30. Wow. Chris gave a TED Talk to one of the largest audience in Canada. Chris shares industry-shaping insights and practical tools to help connect, engage, and overcome adversities in organizations and school. He's a full-time founder of a leadership company focused on speaking, coaching, and community. Today, he's on a mission to help the next generation impact the world through his Over to Fly framework by setting the course, taking the controls, and navigating forward. Please, can we react in the chat box, use our virtual handshakes, use our virtual applause as I welcome Mr. Chris Wilson. I'm not seeing your reaction.
Hey everyone. Sorry, I was just trying
Hi.
to find like my mute button. It was lost on my screen. I have way too many things open right now on my screen.
All right.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Where's everyone zooming in from today? Would love to hear in the chat. Please feel free to come on camera if you are able. If not, that's totally fine. Would also love to see your engagement in the chat. Where are you zooming in from? Love to hear that. And today we're talking about case studies of resilient leaders. My name is Chris Wilson, and I am coming in from Vancouver, Canada. I'll talk a little bit about my story later, just so you kind of have an understanding of where I'm coming from as a leader, and as well as implementing resiliency into that and why is that important. Today, we're going to be talking about a few different leaders, and I'm just going to do a quick overview on what we'll go over. And this is going to be an interactive talk, meaning I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to ask for feedback at certain times. So if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Otherwise, if I'm asking anyone for any sort of feedback or questions, feel free to put up your digital Zoom hand and hop on your microphone at that given time. And if I'm asking anything in the chat as well, feel free to engage, fully open space, and really happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me. So as far as today's session, we will be covering case studies on resilient leaders. And this is just a quick breakdown of what we're going to do. So an intro, kind of a personal story on my resilience and how that impacted my life, a bit about me, what we'll cover, 3 case studies on 3 completely different leaders in different spaces that really kind of didn't follow a similar story, but their stories are intertwined in how they're resilient. So we're going to look at those, which is exciting. And then as well as a feedback bonus and download. So I'm happy to provide you with a free download worksheet from me and to get feedback from you on how engaging and how you like today's session. That really helps me like improve myself as a speaker and as a leader. And it's something that I take not for granted, but I really appreciate when that does happen, as well as an outro and then questions at the end. So if you have a bunch of questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll record those, and we can also talk about those at the end of today's session. So as far as, where I come from in my background, late 2009, I was 18 years old and I was about to board a one-way flight across the country. I had taken a gap year after high school and was really just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And that decision would change the rest of my entire life. I remember sitting down on the plane, buckling into the seat and just wondering what ride of a lifetime I was about to embark on. I was flying 3,300 kilometers away from family, friends, and everyone I knew. And I was about to experience, adventure, a ton of new exciting things, and a ton of debt. I was coming from Toronto, Canada, where I was born, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, flying to Vancouver, chasing a dream. And that dream for me was really to fly helicopters. There was something just really that made me excited and passionate about helicopters, something flying in the air, planes, and just anything kind of that nature was really impressive to me, and I really wanted to do it. And following through on that dream, it was about to cost me everything I had and more. For the following 4 months, I would learn the basics of flight training, weather, and helicopters, from how they operated to the understanding of physics. And every day I would bicycle about 4 kilometers to the hangar to learn about this, whether it was theory, whether it was flight training, and really just living my dream, embracing every single day as an 18-year-old in a new scenario, in a new place, kind of on my own. So it was a ton of fun. And I was fortunate enough to do all sorts of different things in terms of flying. Here's a picture of me flight training, and this is me hovering in the air. So that's the first thing you do when you take off in a helicopter is hover. So I'm actually hovering the aircraft there. And as soon as you hover, like you're hooked on flying. You really love what it is, and there's no feeling like hovering in the air. If anyone's flown in a plane or helicopter, drop that in the comments. I would love to hear, if you've experienced that. In a helicopter, it's a bit different than a plane, but similar. As far as enjoying this experience, like it was a ton of fun, but it soon like switched and came to an end. Good things don't last forever, unfortunately. So 4 months, 100 hours, and $45,000 of debt later, I was a licensed commercial helicopter pilot. And that's what I got this little booklet. So this is actually my pilot's license. It kind of looks like a passport. It's pretty much the same booklet as a passport. And this cost me $50,000 Canadian. So that just shows you kind of this is what I got for that training, 4 months and $50,000. And I was really ready to take on the world. I was ready to take on new challenges as a leader, as myself. And that's what I thought, at least. And my dream, it really just soon turned into a nightmare. And that following year was the most turbulent of my life. It had been 8 months since I received my pilot's license, and I couldn't find a job. I was running out of resources, money, and time. And I was really like struggling to survive at this point, had no idea what to do next. My credit card and student line of credit were fully maxed out. And I checked my bank account one day as I was outside my place I was renting, and it showed negative $523.14. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I'm broke. I had no money to pay bills, rent, or buy food. I was 19 years old, living 3,300 kilometers away from family and friends. And I felt like everything I was doing was pointless. I thought back like to my decision to chase my dream. And I thought to myself, like, would I have been better off not to try at all, to stay in the same place doing nothing, to stay in the hover? And I'm here today, thankfully, not because I know more than you, not because I have some unique gifts, because I don't. I come here before you today because really I'm a professional failure. And I say that kind of laughingly, but it's true. Here's another picture of me flying actually my mom in my flight training on the side of a mountain. And I really think I'm a professional failure because that's what you have to do as a leader. Leaders know that failure is a part of it. It's not a bad thing. It's not about giving up, but that's really part of the journey. And that's something of my journey that I've really experienced. So what I'll share with you today, it's not the only way. It's not even the right way. It's just one way. And from 20 years of experience navigating change, failing, and absolutely crushing it, I've learned a lot. And I want to share some stories, triumphs, and turbulent times. So thanks so much, Precious Fountain Foundation, for having me. My name is Chris Wilson. I was introduced by Deborah as well before here, so I'm not going to go too much into that as far as what I did exactly, but I spent over 14 years as a commercial helicopter pilot and an aircraft maintenance engineer. And I was responsible for hundreds of people's lives each week. So we would have tons of people and tons of different aircraft located all over Western Canada. And I would be responsible for those and those people flying in there. I've dealt with some of the most high stress, high pressure environments on the planet in the most remote areas, and really dealing with like limited resources where we were, not around cities, not around places where you can actually access things. So what came into my life at that was really critical thinking, problem solving, and just figuring things out. After my aviation career, I transitioned into entrepreneurship, and that's where I founded a leadership company called Menti. So I run a community in Vancouver for entrepreneurs. I do speaking and coaching as well, a lot for schools and organizations, and really happy to be here today. I'm a 2-time author and spoken at the largest TEDx in Canada. So if you want to check out my talk, feel free. It's called Life Beyond the Dead Man's Curve. You can look that up on YouTube anytime. And I'm the youngest of 3 boys born in Toronto, Canada. I also got, beat up for my entire childhood from my older brothers. If anyone can relate, drop that in the chat. And as well, like, I kind of got sick and tired of that. So when I was 15 years old, I started going to the gym, and then I never stopped. So for the last 18 years, I've been training and weightlifting, and that's a huge passion of mine. And now my brothers don't mess with me. So that's all good. And as I mentioned before, I've failed so many times, and I've also been through careers, through jobs, and through, tough times in my life. And this is what I call the hover. This is when you're kind of stagnant in life, and this can apply to everyone and everything. So that could be your job, your life, your finances, and pretty much everything else. So when you're in the hover, you're not making forward progress. You're not moving forward. And this is really relatable to these leaders we're going to talk about today, because I feel like everyone, and maybe you can relate to this too on the other side of this Zoom, is, do you ever feel like, those times where you're just hovering, those times where you're stagnant in life, those times where you're trying things, or maybe you're not trying things, and nothing's working out, and you just feel like everything is passing by for months and years. And it's a dangerous place. Not only in a helicopter is it a very dangerous place to operate, but also in your life, because that's really when people pass you. People, they're going for their goals and their dreams and their impact, and they're getting past where you are. And not that I want you to compare, your race to anyone else's race, but the hover is really a place where you want to get out of. And the only way to do that is to build movement and momentum. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and how these leaders built movement and momentum and what they're doing to get outside the hover. So as I mentioned before, I really want this talk to be interactive. Please engage with the chat, engage with the audio, with the video at the appropriate times. And at the end of the talk, if you have any like urging questions, I'll do my best to answer what you have. Not that I claim to know everything or much of anything, but I'll do my best. So yeah, today's format will cover the 3 case studies, as well as how resilience played a role in my life. So here's just a quick blurb about me. I'm also a mentor at UBC, League of Innovators and Junior Achievement. So these are all entrepreneurial ventures for young adults in Canada, in BC and in Canada. And yeah, I think from there we'll move on. So as far as case studies, this is what we're going to cover today. So 5 stories, 3 case studies, 1 bonus download. So make sure you stick around for that, please. You'll receive a download from me, which is absolutely free, and unlimited possibilities. This is what I think is really great about, these leadership conferences and these days, is like, you showed up, and that's really like the main thing. You're here. So congratulations for showing up. As far as the case studies, any guesses? Any guesses in the chat? What do we have here? These are the 3 case studies we're going to cover. We have a basketball, a book, and some random guy, perhaps. No guesses in the chat. Everyone's stumped. So now we're going to go right into a question. I want to make this interactive chat. Oh, we got one. J.K. Rowling, perhaps, maybe. So now we're going to go into a question, and I want this to be interactive. So feel free to raise your hand. Let's get some answers coming in. How has resilience played a role in your life? I'm sure everyone here has had resiliency in and around and throughout their life. So I want to hear from you. And if you want to put this in the chat, feel free. But I'm also looking for people on the microphone, people on video, to also share with me. So this is a real interactive session with you. I don't want to just talk the whole time and you kind of get bored in what you're doing. I really want to make it interactive. So let's hear some answers from some of you. Anyone want to answer this? Let's hear it.
Oh, okay. I would like to talk about how resilience has helped me too. And that's me self. But I think I also have people on the chat. I will let them go, but I want to talk about being able to apply for PhD programs. You know, one of my wonderful stories to tell is that I applied to 5 PhD programs. 5. And the ones I had used as a buffer. For example, I applied to some smaller schools and I applied to big schools like UT, UBC. So the smaller schools, I don't want to mention them, but maybe I should. I also applied to Dalhousie, for example, or to York University in the UK. The smaller schools were the ones that rejected me. And you know how it feels like if, for example, you did an application and you were hoping to have a buffer with some, but instead the buffers were rejecting you ahead of time. And it really affected me psychologically. Like I felt like I was not good enough. But a week later, I was getting offers from SOAS, from Ottawa, from UBC. And I had to now choose which one gave me the biggest funding. And so that was how I settled for UBC. And so, yeah, that is my own story on resilience, being able to continue despite very negative feedback.
Yeah, and I think that's something, you know, we're gonna hear, and that's gonna be like a common theme and a common trend today of resiliency is like losing that confidence, having that self-doubt come in, and really just like, oh, can you do this? Like, can you actually do this? Can you achieve this? You know, that self-doubt, you know, in the back of your mind is really there. Let's hear from Shalom.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Chris. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to talk about how resilience helped me at a particular time in my life. I want to give an instance of when I was struggling with writing. The writing I mean is handwriting. I used to have a bad handwriting, but I had a friend who taught me how to write, and I began to improve, gradually improve for years. And by the time I was in secondary school, what is another name for it is high school, the change was very evident. And even up till now, it's like writing is my business. I like to write. I love to write. And I think that is even where I have the influence that has helped me in my writing skill. When I mean writing skill now, writing essays, short stories, poems, and all of that. So the fact that I like handwriting, it has improved, but it was not that, like that at first, but resilience helped me to pull through, to keep pushing, to know that this is not because of where I was born from or whatever. It's something that could change. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Shalom. So like it's something that, you know, what I took away from that is like it's something that you can build on and you can build up. So like resiliency isn't something you're born with. It doesn't, you know, you don't have it when at birth, you know, that's not true at all. It's a skill and kind of this habit of consistency that you build up. And that's a common theme as well we're going to talk about today is consistency and resiliency. All these leaders we're going to talk about have put in resiliency with consistency. Those two things work hand in hand, and that's really how they push forward to break these barriers. So let's hear from Samuel. I hope I said your name right. We'll take a couple more and then we're going to move on, but there'll be lots of time to answer, but let's take a couple more here.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Thank you. Resilience, I have a lot. I have some couple of examples to give. My primary school, I've been having this difficulty of with mathematics at my primary school, but with all resilience and with all issue, at times when I fail, she don't punish me. And now today, to God be the glory, I'm good. In fact, I even teach people mathematics in my secondary school, and even my institution, my polytechnic, under level, I do all tutorial on calculus. We do it, I treat mathematics with them. So it has really helped me, and it has really I want to achieve in life. I can achieve it when I put in my effort. Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's cool to hear different perspectives and different stories from each person here. Let's move on to one more. Jethro, I saw your hand up there. We'll take one more and we'll move on. Are you still here? Did we lose them? All right, moving right along. There'll be more time and opportunities to share and to really connect and as far as engage with what we're talking about today. So I want today's session to be interactive. That's a really important thing for me. And I think for all of you, to really get the most out of today and get the most out of today's session. And so let's move into our first case study. These case studies by no means are the only resilient leaders. They are by no means the right resilient leaders. These are just leaders that resonated with me personally, that have influenced my life in some way. You might have heard of some of them. You might have heard of none of them. Not really sure, but what they all have in common is resiliency and coming back and getting back up every time they're down amongst tragedy, amongst suffering, amongst difficult situations. So some of the things, kind of just a pre-warning that we're going to talk about are, I want to say a little dark. Maybe that is the right term or not, but there's definitely some realness of these things that they're going through, and realness that is relevant and applicable to everyone here. And so that's kind of why I wanted to touch on it. So the first one we have here today, Michael Jordan. Any sports fans here? Does anyone know or heard of Michael Jordan? Put that in the chat. Put MJ in the chat. I'm a huge sports fan, and sports have played a huge role in my life, and leaders are a huge part of sports. So they're not all going to be sports leaders, so don't worry. But Michael Jordan is known as being the greatest basketball player of all time, and resiliency is definitely something through and through for him. One of the quotes Jordan said is, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." So I'm just going to put this in the chat if I can quick, because that's a really important quote that I love to remind myself of. It is so true if you think about it. The only reason why he says he's a successful leader, so to speak, is because he's failed so many times. So I really resonate with that myself. And I'm just going to give you a quick backstory on Jordan. We'll go into some of his setbacks, we'll go into some of his wins, and then we'll also do a feedback on each case study as well. So make sure you're listening, make sure you're engaged here, because you will have time to participate after these as well. So Michael Jordan was born in Brooklyn, New York. He got a scholarship to North Carolina, but despite being the greatest basketball player of all time, he had a hurdle that he had to overcome right away, and that's he got cut from the high school basketball team. So we're talking the greatest basketball player of all time in the whole world, and he got cut from the basketball team. So just imagine, how deflating that is. Like Sop was saying, applying for all these things and not getting in. And this is, the greatest basketball player, and he gets cut from his high school team. So that was his first setback. From there, he kind of got back up, and he let that fuel him. What you'll notice with these resilient leaders is they don't let these setbacks hold them back. They don't let these setbacks like actually restrict them from what they're doing and who they are. They really let it fuel the fire. So with that, Jordan is all about fuel and fire. So he used that to be more determined and motivated than ever to come back. And that got him a scholarship to North Carolina. From there, he was drafted in the NBA in 1984. And again, his struggles kind of came back. So yes, he's in the NBA. Great. He made it to professional basketball. That's amazing. But he got restricted, he got limited, and that's because a lot of teams really limited what he could do by something called the Jordan rules. So they actually implemented these rules to limit his effectiveness. So that's something we'll touch on. And he dealt with a lot of frustration and challenges there. But again, through persevering, through that discipline, through that determination, he went on to win 6 NBA titles, 6 NBA championships, and a lot more. From there, you know, Jordan faced more setbacks. From one of the greatest personal challenges was, you know, the murder of his father. And that was through a robbery that just happened super randomly. It wasn't targeted, but just honestly unfortunate circumstance. And his father had went to every single game he had. His father had went to all his sporting games and everything. And that's when like Jordan really had to like reassess everything. He reassessed his life. He actually ended up retiring from basketball from the NBA at that time to pursue baseball, to go and pursue professional baseball. So that was a complete change. And that's because his dad actually wanted Jordan to play baseball. He wanted him to become a professional baseball player. So he really was reassessing everything there. And then after about a year and a half, 2 years, he ended up coming back into the NBA in 1995 and won 3 championships. So he is a successful businessman. I'm not sure, you know, where you are in the world, but I was just in the Nike store here in Canada, and like everything is Jordan. Like everything is Jordan. Like everything, shirts, clothes, socks, whatever you want. Shoes, obviously the Air Jordans are some of the most iconic shoes of all time. He's a huge businessman and really created like a global impact and brand, like far beyond the basketball court, far beyond any accolades in sports and whatever that was that he achieved, extended, you know, around the globe, which is super cool. As far as some setbacks, you know, this is something I want to touch on briefly, is every resilient leader has setbacks, and you're going to have setbacks. I'm going to have setbacks. They're all going to look different. You know, mine aren't going to look the same as yours. Yours aren't going to look the same as Michael Jordan's, but they're going to happen in one way, shape, or form. So the first setback is he's cut from the team. He's cut from the high school basketball team. I've been cut from sports teams before. It sucks. You're a young kid, you know, wanting to chase your dream. You know, he wanted to play professional basketball. And the answer was just no, it wasn't happening. But he used that as fuel. He used that as determination to come back and really prove everyone wrong. The second setback was his father's murder. This was where he suffered deeply, really questioning his direction. And as I mentioned, went into pro baseball, then returned to basketball. But that was like where he had to actually reassess everything and try and build from there. And the third and final thing was the Jordan rules. So that's what I mentioned, where teams, especially the Detroit Pistons, would limit his effectiveness by completely just double or triple teaming him every time. And he basically couldn't do anything about it. So that was another one of his setbacks throughout his career, where he wasn't receiving or he wasn't gaining any traction or any of that movement we were talking about. As far as his wins, you know, he's a 6-time NBA championship, 2 3-peats, meaning he won 3 championships in a row. He's the 5-time NBA MVP, which is massive. And he was on the Dream Team, one of the greatest basketball teams ever assembled. And he's also a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. So Jordan has went on to really impact the world. If you like Michael Jordan, throw that in the chat. He's been someone that's really inspired me personally. I have a Jordan like picture on my wall right here, you know, 23 with him dunking the ball. So that's just kind of a reminder for me of like, you know, that fuel, that fire, that determination to be resilient when those tough times are coming. And I think Jordan as a leader really shows all of these qualities through and through. So I'd love to hear, you know, from you again, as far as raising your digital Zoom hand. You're welcome to do that right now. And how is Michael Jordan resilient? Let's talk about him. Even if you don't know his story too much, you know a little bit right now from what I've said. And I would love to hear from you what you think. The Michael Jordan factor. I like that comment. So how is Michael Jordan resilient? Any takers on this one? I really want today to be interactive, so please participate. There's no right or wrong answers. Happy to hear in the chat. Also happy to hear in Zoom via microphone. Yes, you're back. All right, let's hear from you.
Okay, good evening. Good evening, Chris Wilson. Thank you for this presentation. It's amazing. I like the way you share your screen to show us all this. I'm really enjoying. So quickly about how Michael Jordan died. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you good. Keep going.
Okay. For me, practically, I so resilient in the life of Michael Jordan, in the sense that even when he, his dream was about to cut short in high school, he was turned down. He wasn't allowed to push on with his career from that, as low as that level was. But we see resilience in his life when he was able to push beyond that, even when there was serious pressure for him to step down. I could relate that to my life personally. I remember when I started my career as a web developer, I had a series of challenges from my family, from my friends who were like, you're already a graduate, you are not supposed to be learning skill to change career from, I study industrial chemistry, but because of my kind of perspective about life. I'd always wanted to work with computer, So I had to make up my mind, even against all odds. My family, my friends were like, this is not good for you. By this time around, you're supposed to be working, you're supposed to be doing something in line with what you study in your undergraduate. But then I had to stay put and stay through with my decision, what I've decided to do with my life and my career. So I see resilience in the life of Michael Jordan, even against odds from high school, as low as high school was, he would have given up easily because, he could actually pick up another career and move on with, since he was still a high school guy. But he was able to stay tuned to push through his career because he had made up his mind. He was resilient. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I really loved how you mentioned those outside factors. We haven't talked too much about those outside factors, and feel free someone to raise your hand right now while I kind of riff on this for a bit. Would love to hear another answer for that until we move on. But those outside factors those are parents, those are partners, those are spouses, those are social norms and social expectations of, oh no, you can't do that. Like, why would you do that? There's no way you should do that. That doesn't make any sense. And it's this noise, I like to call it, the noise, outside from everyone it's loud and it's hard to push that away, but that's really what these people do. Okay, we got some hands coming up now. Let's go for Yishao. I hope I didn't pronounce that wrong.
All right, good evening, all. Good evening. I first of all thank the organizers of the program and the management of PFF for this wonderful opportunity. Actually, my name is Oshahemba. Like you pronounce, you are very correct, sir. Thank you. I also viewed resilience. In fact, I've experienced it likewise or as experienced by Michael Jordan, because after my undergraduate studies, I applied for, actually, I wanted to study medicine. So I applied for medicine during my undergraduate applications and all of that. In Nigeria, we write one examination before you applied to go for college or university, but it didn't work out. So I ended up studying biochemistry. So after the biochemistry, we did the mandatory NYC from Nigeria. So I was hoping that maybe after the program, I will enroll back to my medical line. So when that doesn't work out, I had to, because I had so much aspirations for academics and then some other academic activities. I submitted an application for an MSc degree in one of the reputable universities in Nigeria. Yes, I was denied. I tried the other one. I was not given the course I wanted. Actually, if it wasn't a perseverance, which is one of the attributes of resilience as portrayed by Michael Jordan, I wouldn't have been doing MSc as I'm doing right now. So it's actually very encouraging, and resilience has equally played a very crucial and pivotal role in my life. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks so much for sharing. Appreciate it. We're actually going to move on to a second question here. So I know you have your hand up. Yashao, but I'm hoping you can just answer this question for us so we can keep moving on here. So how did leadership play a role in his life? Go ahead.
Sorry, sir, by this you mean in his own life or using my own life as an example? I didn't quite get that.
We had someone else's hand up there, Yashao. So I was hoping to hear an answer from them.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yep. Is there...
Can I come? Hello, can I come?
Yeah,
Hello.
floor is yours. Stage
Yes,
is
you can
yours.
speak.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to set an example with the word resilient, as those my colleagues mentioned. So what I'm trying to say, above all, thank you very much for the well presentation. What I'm trying to say is, for me, as a boy that come from a small village, I come from a very challenging environment that they can't accept the modern education. I try my best to pursue my degree in so many fields. Despite that, my parents are not well educated with the modern education, as well as my community. They see that you'll just go and waste your time. None of us achieve with this type of modern education. You have to sit, go farm with us, do something, do things. Just, I know my environment have so many challenges like socio-cultural influence that we are having in the northern part of Nigeria. So I try my best. I challenge myself. I did well. I read. Despite that, I'm facing a lot of challenges like financial issue, no family support, no parent support. With this type of challenge, I just assume that I have to do it for myself. I know that there are some certain people that I have to set an example with them. They did it and they make it. Me too, I have to do it and make it. At least one day I have to make my family, my community proud. So with this, I read hard and I write an exam, which is National Exam Council, NECO, here that we did in Nigeria. I just have an opportunity to attend Unity College in my state, Bauchi State, in the northern part of the country. I also meet a lot of people from different culture, from different background, from different tribes. I just communicate with them, go around them. I read. I'm proud to say that I come from a small village among the top 3 students in that particular time. So with that, I just need to pursue my BSc to study medicine. Likewise, with the situation, I just got admitted to study physiology in the university. Thank you. With this word resilient, I did it to the best of my ability to also attend university. With this, I know sometimes even my father is proud that my son, he is in the university studying physiology. I'm proud to say that we haven't one person in our family that he is pursuing education. So even this, I can say that it makes me proud. And with this, with what you mentioned about that Jordan, sometimes I used to watch something related to him and read. I know that he go a lot, he goes through, but he challenged himself. He accepts that he can do it, and he did it. So I just give an example and assure myself that if I come across so many obstacles, I will do to the best of my ability to challenge myself to be better, faster. I'm now proud that I'm the best person to be a graduate in my community. I'm from a very, very, very village community. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's give everyone a virtual round of applause for being the first person to do something, in your family. And I think that's huge, right? As far as being resilient with social challenges, with family challenges, with all these challenges that we're all facing that are different, like I mentioned before. Feel free to put your hand back down as well, Yashao. That would be great. And yeah, I think these challenges are all relatable in one way or another. And that's why you know, I thought it was important for Michael Jordan to be in there. I think that's even though it might seem a little far-fetched for some of us as far as, you know, that relating just to even a pro athlete, I think there is relatability to all of us for that. So thank you so much for sharing. Now we're going to move on to our second case study, and this is someone actually nailed it on the head as far as who it is, and that's J.K. Rowling. So I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with J.K. Rowling. If you are, please put in J.K. into the chat. Let's hear it. J.K. She's the writer of Harry Potter. And if you have heard of Harry Potter, it is one of the biggest book series of all time. It's into theme parks, merchandise, movies, whatever exists, it is in Harry Potter. There's massive fan people in terms of this. And J.K. Rowling faced severe setbacks, lots of setbacks. So we're going to get into those right now. I did want to put in a quote first from her and share that. So J.K. Rowling says, "It is our choices that show what we truly are far more than our abilities." It is our choices that show what we truly are far more than our abilities. And that's something I really want to hit home today as far as what's your choice? And it may not seem as simple as that. I know there's more complexities than that completely, but it does start with a choice. And it starts kind of resiliency is you deciding, it's you making a choice, you making a decision forward. And that's something for yourself and for your community around you. So that's important. As far as her early life, she was born in 1965 in England, and she loved to create stories. She always loved stories. And the whole idea of Harry Potter came to her in the 1990s when she was on a train traveling from Manchester to London. And she began outlining the series of the books. And, you know, you'd think everything was great with her and where she was at, but she was actually dealing with significant personal challenges, significant challenges with the death of her mother, who was dealing with severe challenges for a long time, for nearly a decade, the end of her marriage, and she was living as a single mother in relative poverty. So she was actually living on welfare as she was writing Harry Potter, but she didn't give up. She kept going. She finished the manuscript to Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. That's the first book of many in 1995 and was rejected, which we'll talk about many, many, many times until 1996 when someone finally said yes. And that is a huge part of her story, dealing with all these setbacks. And the book was published in 1997. Became a bestseller. She wrote 6 more in the series, sold over 500 million copies worldwide, and the rest is history. So as far as her personal challenges, you know, divorce, struggling to, you know, earn income at all, living on welfare to support her child. And, you know, she's really impacted far beyond writing and far beyond being an author. She's donated millions of her wealth to poverty, to various causes like multiple sclerosis and children's welfare, things that impacted her deeply. And she's really impacted so many people. So as far as JK's setbacks, we have financial struggles. So, you know, like even someone mentioned earlier, you know, everyone's dealing with some sort of struggles, and she was dealing with financial struggles at that time where like you think it would be easier for her just to quit and give up. Like she's writing one of the biggest books of all time, the series, but she's barely surviving. She's barely paying for her kids. She's barely, you know, moving forward, but she doesn't give up. She's still writing. So I think that's a huge testament to her resilience there. That's really important. And the second thing, I mean, sorry to say, but there's a lot of death with all of these examples. And you know, death's a part of life, but unfortunately that is it's in all of these examples. So death of her mother. Her mother battled multiple sclerosis for nearly 10 years, nearly a decade, and died. So that was a huge blow to her. She was very close with her mother, very close relationship. So that, you know, kind of set her off course, just like it set Jordan off course. And then finally, she was rejected 12 times. So rejection's a tough thing. Like, I'm not sure, has anyone like been rejected here? Have you, you know, I'm sure everyone's felt rejection in some way, shape, or form, whether it's at a job, whether it's at a career, whether it's getting into school, like it's been mentioned many times before, or changing. And that might just be like rejected 1, 2, or 3 times. And then you're like, okay, like that's enough. That's like, that's enough rejection for me. Imagine being rejected 12 times on something you've written. You put your whole entire life's work into this, and you keep just getting no, 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 no. How could you possibly persevere through that? Through 3, through 5, through 7. We're talking 12 times she got rejected. So that just is a massive showing of how resilient J.K. Rowling is. And I really want to emphasize that because that's massive. As far as her wins, though, she has some very big wins, from going from welfare to the creator of Harry Potter, 500 million copies sold, literary awards, multiple book awards around the world that are very important in the literary world, and charitable work. She's donated millions of her wealth, a significant amount, to welfare and other organizations she's really passionate about helping and passionate about pursuing. And so J.K. Rowling, like, I'm not a huge reader on fiction books, so I haven't read them. Do we have anyone that's read the books, read her books? Would love to hear in the chat if you're a Harry Potter fan at all, or the movies. I mean, I've watched all the movies. I'm not sure if anyone's watched the movies either, but really, really cool stuff, really elaborate, really creative. And she impacted generations with this, with her creativity, with the wizarding world, with the whole thing. And it all stemmed from hardship. It all stemmed from difficult times. It all stemmed, like, all of these situations that happened with her mom, with barely surviving in financial struggles, with raising her daughter as a single mother. She's put all of those in one way, shape, or form into the books, into the writing, into the whole storyline of those pains and of those struggles. So that's something, similar to Michael Jordan, is that she didn't just like give up and quit, even though that was the easy option. That was for sure, that was the easy option. Once you get rejected 12 times, it's like, how can you kind of move on from that? So she didn't take the easy road. She took the hard road, and that was by persistence and resilience. And that was through continuing to do what she wanted and to pursue that passion. So writing was a passion of hers. And I'm not saying that you might be the next Harry Potter, because the chances are you probably won't. But at the same time, it's really the story of, you got this, you can do this, and to keep going in the midst of no, and in the midst of challenges. That's really where you can shine. So with that all being said, I would love to hear again, please raise your digital Zoom hand. Would love to hear your participation. How is J.K. Rowling resilient? So whoever would like to participate, please raise your hand, and love to hear from you. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yep, we can hear you. You're good.
Okay. Wow, really? For about 6 times, it's really difficult things to do, because I don't think I can take up to that being times. So it's really, our resilience is really high. For me, she pushed, even though, to see that she scaled through, and indeed she came out victorious. But I watched the movie, and it was quite insightful. The movie was one of my best.
Thanks for sharing, Samuel. It was a little choppy on my end as far as how it was coming through. I did hear it, but thank you for sharing. We're going to move on to Deborah. Go ahead.
All right. I'm a really big fan of Harry Potter and the series, the movies, and even J.K. Rowling herself. A form of resilience. Okay, reading the book too, the main character, Ari, you can actually see he was also very resilient. He was an outcast in the beginning. He had to fight his way through to the top, became a star and everything. He also faced a lot of difficulties throughout the entire six parts of the book. I mean, she was very, very resilient. I mean, I can't think I can take up to 12 rejection on one single thing alone. Like, oh, it's a lot. So I think one of the ways she became resilient was she was staying very focused. It's a lot. Like as a writer, sometimes I write, though not fiction and stories. As a writer, it's well, imagine going to a publisher and they're like, oh, your book is not good. And reading the book, it's actually not bad. So at times you just be like, is the book bad? I mean, she could have just decided to like throw it away and be like, that's the end of the story, on to another story. But she kept going on. I think so she was focused, she was very, very determined. That was one thing for me. 12 publishers, wow. Then she never gave up on the story. I mean, that's amazing. Then another form of resilience for me in her is through her book, her character. She actually showed, I think you can kind of tell that, oh, Ari was resilient. Then another thing she does on her Instagram stories, sometimes she posts rejection letters that she's faced from publishers and everything as a way to encourage other writers that, oh, don't give up on your dream. I think that's another form of resilience, encouraging others. I mean, it takes a lot. You can be going to imagine someone going through depressions and all, and you're also trying to encourage others. I think that's also a form of resilience. I mean, she was posting rejection letters to see that, oh, this story just didn't become a success overnight. I think that's also another way, encouraging others. She was focused and she was very determined and she never gave up until the end.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Deborah. I really liked how you mentioned the rejection letters, especially on social media, the stories, Instagram stories, like you mentioned. It's so easy to see, everyone living this high life and, oh, everyone's life is so great. My life sucks. And everyone's living on a beach, sipping drinks and living their best life. So I think it's really important you said that, of her showing the other side, which is the real side of rejection, of kind of putting that stuff out there. So we're going to move on to Yashao again. I'm going to change the question on you. I think I might have done this last time to you as well. But how did leadership play a role in J.K. Rowling's life? Go ahead.
So thank you very much, sir. Once again, I would like to say the best things for this particular issue is she encouraged herself to see that she achieved the goal. And accept rejection at least 12 times. It's not an easy task. But when you understand yourself and you believe that you want to bring something and you want to achieve something, at least you will do all your possible best to see that you did well, you accept all the challenges to achieve your goal in particular. I can say that what she did is unbelievable. Yes, it's unbelievable. Because I have to give an example with I myself, that when I was in primary 2, I can say that I was taking the last position in the class. My friends used to shout at me, loud at me, but with the time that I think that they are human beings like me, I have to do it better than them. I did, and I achieved. So with this, I can say that I can, sorry, sir, let me give an example in my community. There is one particular school that I just bring in the community. I used to give the example to my student that I myself before, I can say that I was the last person in my class. But with the situation, I challenged myself, I did well. I come again, I read. So don't ever let your dreams go unnoticed, unachieved. Do it to the best of your ability to achieve your goals. I used to tell them that. So what she did is amazing, amazing. Accept rejection 12 times. As I said earlier, it's not an easy task. So with these types of issue, I can say that it's just another way of motivation, and we are motivated. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, I like how you're, wanting to chase your dreams and never give up, and that going through rejection is tough. So last in class and working towards that, toward toward the front. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And it sounds like reading and writing is a common theme in today's session. Reading's important, writing is important from a lot of the guests here and viewers. I think someone might still be on your microphone, so please just make sure your microphone's muted right now. Couple of people. Okay, great. Awesome. So yeah, that's really a common theme of like, going forward, reading, writing, important skills and investing in yourself and investing in your skills. We haven't talked too much about that as we're really focused on resiliency in leaders, but investing in yourself. And that doesn't have to be a financial investment. That could be with time there sitting by yourself. That could be enjoying a walk. That could be focusing on something that you might want to achieve or who you want to be in life. So there's all those different things I think are really great. So is everyone ready to move on to our third and final case study? And if you are, or if you aren't, we're going to go on anyways. And our final one is, there's a book I read, I don't know how many years ago, several years ago. And it really impacted my life. It really impacted how I thought about my problems, how I thought about the world, and how I really thought about everything else in between. And maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't heard of him. But if you haven't, I really highly recommend checking out his book and reading it to gain new perspective and to figure out, what our problems and our issues and our challenges might not actually be as big as we think. And those are going to look different for each of us, but let's move on to Viktor Frankl. So Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor. He's the creator of logotherapy, which I will touch on, and he's an author. And that's the book I'm going to mention in a little bit here. His quote is, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." And so I just posted that in the chat there. This is a great quote that really, really defines his purpose, his meaning, his passion, and everything he's done in his entire life. So Viktor Frankl was born in 1905 in Vienna, Austria-Hungary. And he was into psychology and philosophy at a young age. And he studied medicine at the University of Vienna, specializing in neurology and psychiatry. And he was really influenced by Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler. And he became a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist. And he really focused on a form which he created in the concentration camps where he and his family were, called logotherapy. And that's a form of psychotherapy he developed based on the belief that finding meaning in life is the primary motivation for human beings. So he created logotherapy, which was the belief that finding meaning in life is the primary motivation for human beings. He did some work with others on suicide prevention, and he's a Holocaust survivor. So he and his family were taken and put into concentration camps during World War II in Nazi Germany. Horrific suffering and tragedy. And again, I hate to keep bringing up all this bad and negativity, so to speak, but this is what he's coming out of, and this is what he's stemming from, and this is how he's being resilient as a leader in his own way. And I think that's really important to look at here. So, he encountered some of the most horrifying situations and circumstances on the planet, but he maintained the belief in resilience in the human spirit. And that's really important with him. And he observed the prisoners and their circumstance and how they found meaning and purpose, even though they would endure the suffering and pain like in their circumstance. After the war, once he was out of the concentration camp and survived, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. I'm just going to post that in the chat so everyone knows this is the book I was talking about. If you've read this book, put it in the chat, please. If you've read that, Man's Search for Meaning. And this was his memoir, and it was a bestseller worldwide. It really talks about his form of logotherapy and how you can use that and how he used that to find meaning in these real dire and terrible situations. And his reach, just like the previous two case studies, reached far beyond Austria and Germany and all of these places there. It was worldwide, it was global impact, and his book remains a bestseller to this day. So I highly recommend checking that out. As far as Viktor Frankl's setbacks, some that we've talked about already, the first being imprisonment. So Holocaust imprisonment along with his family in concentration camps. Clearly, none of us can relate to this, but I think just kind of looking into it and even reading that book really just puts your toe into the situation, and you start to understand that how terrible things really were for Victor and his family. And that kind of leads us into number two. The setback is the loss of his family. So I know I keep talking about death here. Unfortunately for Victor, this was the loss of his parents, his brother, and his pregnant wife at the time in the concentration camp. So immense loss, immense tragedy, something I hope no one has to endure, but it's just absolutely devastating. And post-war, really the final setback of how do you rebuild from that? How do you actually move on from that, surviving all of that tragedy? I'm not really sure how you would push forward. And that's kind of why we have Victor at the end here of, being, I don't know if I want to rank them, but probably one of the most resilient people in here, just because of the tragedy was so tough and so steep. But now let's focus on his wins. So throughout this tragedy and throughout these experiences does come good. And that's what I want to focus on here. So he's the creator of logotherapy. So that's what we mentioned before. And that's the psychotherapy based on the human belief that human beings' primary motivation is the search for meaning in life. And that's really what it's all about. And that's what he wrote his memoir on, Man's Search for Meaning, published in 1946. And it's one of the most influential books of the 20th century. So if you have not heard of that or have not read it, for our readers in the room here today, I really recommend getting that if you can and checking it out. And the third thing, as far as wins, is legacy and influence. His impact on others and human nature and suffering and resilience is next to none. And I think when you can understand, his form of logotherapy in some regard, as well as the Man's Search for Meaning book, you can really start to understand, like, wow, like some of these things I'm dealing with are not even, relevant to kind of setbacks that we might think they are. And a lot of them, we build this stuff up in our heads of how bad things are and how bad things can get. But I mean, when you read something like this, it really changes your mind and changes your perspective on that. So with all that being said, with Viktor Frankl, I open the floor up to you as well. And I would love to hear from you right now, as far as how is he resilient? This is the final case study. We're not finished yet. We still have some things to cover, but I'd really love to hear, if you raise your digital Zoom hand, how was Victor resilient? And I'll leave the floor to you. Go ahead, Francis. Let's hear from you.
All right, thank you. So based on my understanding, I can say that he was able to find meaning amidst chaos, because the situation he got into was very chaotic. Losing your family is not something everyone will be able to go through and become successful, because you may likely be traumatized throughout your entire life. But despite all the challenges and everything that he faced, he was able to find purpose. And I think it's his ability to find purpose, to stand strong in the face of adversity, that he was able to bring out or to share that part of him, that, okay, if I can overcome this, then it's also important to also show to the world that it's possible for you to also overcome such challenges in life. So I can say that to be able to find meaning for himself when he lost the family, wife, and everything, it's a kind of being resilience, which is something not easy to do.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Francis. Like, thriving beyond the chaos, thriving beyond the challenges. It's not easy to do. And I really think that's what resiliency is, like in the core. As a leader pushing forward, you're not always doing, the easiest things or the things that come easy to others. You're doing hard things and you're making hard choices. Let's hear from you, Jethro, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for this. For me, I think this guy, Victor Franklin, was how he does this is unimaginable, you know. It's like you driving against the wave on the ocean, pushing down and you are driving against it, and then you eventually overcome it. Because the circumstances he found himself in, these are emotionally traumatic circumstances that ordinarily man should be able to be broken down and give up. But you know, this guy was able to push through. So for me, him striving against all odds to become who you have said you wanted to be was a kind of resilience that leaders need to actually imbibe and see how to actually move in and pursue whatever goal I set aside, I was set before then. Thank
Yeah,
you.
appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. And I'm actually just going to change the question on you, Samuel. As far as how did leadership play a role in his life, you're welcome to share.
Well, the leadership plays a role in his life, in such a way that he was seeing difficulties right clear before him. There are a lot of difficulties. Him losing his parent and also his pregnant wife is a whole lot that will have made him to say, I will give up. I won't want to continue. At times, as a leader, there are decisions you want to take that will hurt you, but you just need to take action in order to make headways, in order to achieve success in whatever you want to do. So you just need to take that decision and go ahead for it. There are some goals, there are some things you want to achieve, but it will take a whole lot from you so that you achieve it. And these are the things he did. He was able to push through, even though there are difficulties, there are clearly challenges, there are setbacks that are before him. He was in a prison, and he lost his parents, and also he lost his pregnant wife. That alone will have put him to stop, but he still go ahead and achieve it. I think these are some of the leadership qualities I see. His resilience alone is something to talk more about.
Yeah, appreciate that, Samuel. Thanks so much. Feel free to lower your hand as well when you're finished there. And thanks everyone for sharing. Really appreciate today's session. We still have some more stuff to cover, but that was our 3 case studies. So Michael Jordan, J.K. Rowling, and Viktor Frankl. I really hope you learned something from all of them and all of their stories in terms of their setbacks, their challenges. We're still going to cover, and I'm still going to talk about someone else that has been very resilient and inspired me throughout my journey that I'm really excited to share for you with aviation background. And for now, what I would really appreciate, everyone, this is when I was mentioning the bonus and the download. And so one way that I actually like to get feedback when I do speaking, when I do engagements, whether that's in person or online, virtual like today, is by getting feedback from you, from the audience. And that really helps me to improve. So if you do have a few minutes, I would love and appreciate for you to pull out your phone or copy this URL. And this will prompt you to just give me some feedback. And once you give me feedback, you'll actually receive a free digital download worksheet called a career flight plan. And this is something I've built that's a few pages and really just helps you get a bigger view on what you want to do. It's something I've created to help you with your goals, with your values, and with a bunch of things there. So if you wouldn't mind giving me feedback, I'd honestly really appreciate that. And then you'll be able to download your resource. So we're just going to take a few minute break right now. So if you wouldn't mind doing that right now, I'm going to just turn off my camera, fill my water, and we'll be back in a few minutes. If you need to do a stretch or a washroom break at the same time or after you're done the worksheet, I'd really appreciate that. So I'll leave this up for now, and I'll be back in a few minutes. So thank you. Hey everyone, I'm hoping everyone's just finishing up the feedback form. Again, I really appreciate you filling this out, and it helps me to give better talks and to give better value as far as how these talks go. So we'll just finish these up in the next few seconds. If you're done, just put done in the chat, done in the messaging. Would really appreciate that, so we kind of know what numbers we have moving forward. And we'll continue on to the final part of today's session. Link in the chat box. Yeah, I think I could probably do that. Try that link there. That should work for you. And then you'll put in code all caps FLY, FLY. That'll give you access. Another 30 seconds here, and let's move on to our final piece, and we'll open up questions after that. Happy to answer any questions following this final piece once we're through it. How's everyone enjoying today's session? Are you getting any value from it? Are you learning anything? Are you getting maybe a new perspective? We'll take questions as far as at the end. Tede, we'll take questions. So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat or just also remember it. And we're going to cover that in a bit here. So yeah, really want to know how you're enjoying today's session, and let's move on. So thanks again for doing that form. And I want to go on to the final piece today. So as far as the case studies, we covered 3 case studies with 3 different people: Michael Jordan, J.K. Rowling, and Viktor Frankl. All different leaders, all showed extreme resiliency in what they're doing and extreme resiliency throughout their entire life. So it wasn't, that's the thing with resiliency. It's not one thing you do on Monday when you feel like it, or you know what, I'll be resilient next week. That's not how it works. It's really about being resilient consistently and showing up consistently and dealing with rejection and dealing with hardship and dealing with these struggles in your own way, whatever those ways are, and pushing forward. And so there's a woman that really resonates with me and a lot of the stories I like to tell in my talks. And she was one of the most influential people on the planet. And her story, while it begins and ends in aviation, she impacted millions around the globe. And her legacy encompassed, gender equality, inspiration for future generations, and advancements in aviation. And her name was Amelia Earhart. And she once said, "The most effective way to do it is to do it." And she couldn't be further from she's definitely bang on the mark as far as that quote. And I love it because how simple and effective it is. But at the same time, when you hear that, you're like, is that really how it works? And so let's go back to 1920s when Amelia was 23 years old. She first attended an air show in Long Beach, California, where she'd take her first 10-minute flight. Mind you, this is the early 1900s when flying is relatively new and fast changing. And this flight really was like the change maker, so to speak, for the rest of Amelia's life. It sparked her passion for aviation, and she spent the rest of her life pursuing it. She'd go on to impact millions around the globe by enduring turbulent times, breaking barriers, and overcoming the impossible. And Amelia, she didn't originally know or have a passion for aviation. It wasn't until she was 23 years old that her vision really like started to take shape. So if you're stressed out right now about finding, you know, that perfect plan, just be patient. As you grow and encounter new experiences, a direction will slowly appear. Amelia was determined to fly, so she worked various jobs to save for flying lessons. And she didn't work 1, 2, or 3 different jobs. Amelia worked 5 different jobs to finance her passion for aviation. She was a photographer, a truck driver, a stenographer, as well as a companion. And these jobs and her, you know, sensible lifestyle allowed her to begin flying lessons in 1921. And she needed to say yes multiple times at key moments before things would start to take shape and overcome extreme challenges, especially being a woman and a woman in aviation in the early 1900s. And this went on to purchasing her first plane, which was $2,000 in 1921. So just imagine $2,000 in 1921. That's a lot of money back then, especially for her. So that's why she was working these 5 jobs to pay for flying lessons, then buy a plane. And she nicknamed it the Canary because it was bright yellow. And this really demonstrated her seriousness in aviation, her seriousness in what she was doing, and commitment. And that was really big. And following that, she would go on to break multiple speed and altitude records. And in 1932, she was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean from Canada to Ireland. And she had an adventurous spirit and determination to break barriers and really just inspire others. That's what she did, you know, both inside and outside the airplane. And she was a speaker, and she really spoke to young women to really chase their dreams and to go after what they wanted. And she was in control of her life, and she flew it where she wanted. She had a dream, she had a goal, and she would not give up until she got there. And that led her to set all of these and break all of these records that no one thought possible, especially as a woman during that time period. There were few women in aviation in general, and to be breaking these barriers and to be really coming out on top and succeeding was something that wasn't seen too often and was almost looked down on with a lot of people. So that was huge. And her story is filled with many ups and downs and like course corrections along the way. Just like flying, you're constantly adjusting, you're constantly figuring out the weather and what's happening in these changing circumstances. So she really needed to adjust and adapt to that change when she was going. And while she accomplished all these things, she kind of came to this point, which was the biggest decision of her life. There was this one thing she couldn't get out of her mind, this one thing that just consumed her eventually. And that was to do the biggest thing of all, the biggest thing she would ever do. And that was a flight around the world. And this route would be planned meticulously, considering weather patterns, fuel consumption, and landing sites. So on June 1st, 1937, soon after departing Miami, she and her navigator encountered challenges from wind and consumed more fuel than they expected. Amelia needed to make a critical decision to change course. And this is at the start of their trip. They left Miami for a westward route around the world, meaning they were going to fly west around the world. But they actually turned around because the wind was too strong and changed the whole course. So I'm not sure about you, I'm not sure where to walk down the street sometimes in terms of my direction. Amelia is just making a decision to change course around the world now eastward, just immediately on the fly, just like that. So that's how adaptable really she is to changing circumstances. And I think that's how adaptable you need to be as a resilient leader. And so all these various landing sites were planned for emergencies, and they remained flexible throughout their location. And despite their planning and preparation, the shifts and changes would end Amelia's attempt. And they encountered radio troubles and dealt with severe weather changes, which were out of their control. And on July 2nd, 1937, they disappeared over the Pacific Ocean near Howland Island. And this remains one of the biggest aviation mysteries of all time. They were never found. Their plane was never found. No remains were ever found. And that was that. And so as far as today's session, I do want to end it on a high note. I do want to end it on a positive note. And that's Amelia really lived life beyond the hover. She really lived with movement. She lived with adventure. She lived with excitement. And she had to be resilient through every single stage, every single step of what she was doing. And that reflects the same with everyone that we've talked about, as well as all of you here, dealing with and being resilient in your own way with what you're dealing with and the challenges you face is really important to emerge and to be a leader every single day. And so here's what I want you to walk away with from today's session. Amelia and all of these leaders are resilient, and resiliency is something they do consistently. And that's what I've mentioned before earlier in this talk as well, is it's something you need to do consistently, day after day after day. When these challenges come up, when these setbacks come up, all of these people, including yourselves, need to be consistent with it. And these leaders did it, and so can you. And it really starts with a choice. And that choice is, will you let it fuel you? Will you let it fill you with that determination, that motivation, that commitment to push on, to push boundaries, to push forward? Or on the other side of it, will you let it consume you? So aviation pioneer once said, the most effective way to do it is to do it. So my question to you is, what choice will you make and how will resiliency appear in your life? Thanks so much for today's session. I really enjoyed being here. Thank you to the Precious Fountain Foundation, to SOP, to Francis, to Deborah, to everyone else involved that I haven't met. I really, really appreciate you and all of you that showed up here. Thanks for spending some time with me wherever you are in the world. And I honestly hope to connect with you, engage with you in some way, shape, or form in the future. So thanks for joining. We're going to move on to questions in a little bit here. If you do want to connect with me on my website, on social, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, feel free to go and follow me, go and support me, go and check out what I'm doing. Happy to connect with you there. On social at I am Chris M. Wilson. And yeah, we're going to move on to some questions for everyone here. We have about 23 minutes left. And so I'm happy to answer anything as transparent and honestly as I can. I'm happy to be an open book as far as my experience. But if you have a question, about the case studies, if you have a question about being a resilient leader or wanting to share a story of your own to help everyone else here to maybe get that spark, to get that insight, to get that change of perspective, that would be really great too. So I'm happy to listen to what you have to say and to help out any way I can. So if you want to drop anything in the chat, you want to put your digital Zoom hand up, we're going to go till 11 here today. So we don't have too much time, but happy to make the most out of it.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chris. I must say, I personally am really, really impressed and happy, and I gained a lot from your session. I think I was even more happy when you mentioned J.K. Rowling. She's really, really one of my favorite authors, so I was really happy about her. And I hope everybody else too has gained a lot and learned a lot. Okay, I have a question actually, before I go and moderate the question and answer section. So we have been talking about resilience, being resilient and all that. But are there steps to be taken? Is there something you're meant to do to become resilient? Or is there any stage you're meant to go through? Is there something you're meant to be doing? Oh, you're failing academically or you're being rejected. I mean, you don't just suddenly jump and come out and say, oh, I've been resilient. Are there some steps you are meant to take or some stages you are meant to go through before you get into the transitioning stage and everything?
Yeah, as far as certain steps, I mean, specifically, there's no blueprint, if that's what you're wondering, as far as to be resilient at different times. But I think the common theme with resiliency is when you're going through those challenging times, when you're facing that self-doubt, when you're facing those times where you feel like you want to give up and not keep going and pursuing, those are the times that are going to shape your future. Those are the times that are going to determine where you end up next week, next month, next year. And that'll really show in years to come. So 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. And while I don't have an exact blueprint or I can't recommend, what you can do to be resilient daily. I think when you're going through these tough times and that shows up, and you'll know when that shows up, you'll kind of know when that moment is like, oh yeah, no, this like doesn't seem good. I don't like this situation. That kind of discomfort, so to speak, that's when you'll need to kind of make the tough decision, so to speak, and persevere. So while I hope that answers your question in some way, I don't have the perfect answer for it.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, we have some questions to contribution. You can just raise up your hand so you can get Mr. Chris. Okay, we already have
I didn't hear that question at all.
some questions in
Deborah.
the chat box.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
Deborah, your line is breaking. Because
Oh, my line is broken. All right, sorry. So sorry, it's network. I was
okay.
just telling everybody that if they want to speak or contribute, they can just raise up their hand. But pending that, we already have some questions in the chat box, which I would like Mr. Chris to address. Then again, if you want to speak, please raise up your hand, like your virtual hands. Sorry, not your physical hand, your virtual hands, so we can just see you and have it organized well. You can also make comments, you can tell your stories, you can ask questions. It's just a little interactive session. But pending that, we already have.
And I think I see some of the questions here, so I can just move on with Tady. Hope I'm saying that right. My question, when there's no driving factors to move on, how would you encourage someone to push forward considering there is practically no muse to move forward? Sounds like a pretty dire situation. As far as, no driving factors to move on, I think that really depends on what you're doing. It sounds to me like your perspective on the situation is like it's hopeless and there's nothing you can do or there's no reason for pushing on. So, I mean, the only thing I can really say in that situation is like, why are you doing it? What's really the main reason why you're doing that, your why, and hopefully that kind of pushes you in the right direction. So I'm not sure if anyone's watched the YouTube video Start With Why, Simon Sinek. I really recommend going with that. If someone has it, drop it in the chat. Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And that really is like almost your North Star or your guidance or your navigator on the path, what you're doing. So if you're saying, there's no hope and in what you're doing, then maybe you're not doing the right thing, or maybe you're just saying the circumstances is so dire that it's really difficult. But I think that's where you need to dig into your why. And that's really the bigger reason than it all. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than the community, your family. It's like, okay, why do I want this impact? Why do I actually want to come on this call and talk to people, is really to give back, to help out, and to be bigger than myself. That's a big thing. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. As far as Angel, having a real defined foundation and goals and of what you're doing a lot matters. And so, yeah, I mean, this is maybe not exactly on resiliency and leaders, but it's definitely interconnected in some way. So yeah, really like having those goals defined. And I'm a big believer, honestly, of like having your goals written and not having like 100, not having like 95, but like having like 3 or like 5 goals written like on a piece of paper, like next to your screen or on your bathroom mirror, like somewhere where you're going to see them every single day. Like you're going to remind yourself, oh, okay, like this is the thing. And you're just so consumed with it that that's what you want to live. And hopefully those goals are for the better, for sure. That's part of it. But I'm a big believer in, yeah, having a strong foundation of goals. Less is more. Being detailed, being structured, being specific. Deadlines is huge. When do you want to do that by? How much money do you want to make? When do you want to get that job or get into school by? Really important. And writing it down and having that where you want to see it. So I'm getting a little lost in the chat. So also, if anyone wants to answer in with the microphone, I'm happy to do that as well. I'm just going to stop my screen sharing so I can make it a little cleaner on my screen.
I think we have another question from Tade again in the chat box. The question of when there is no driving factor. Okay, there was actually one at the top. Yeah, okay, let me just look for it. Where is it?
Oh, I see one here from David. Consistently doing stuff I plan to do is often a very problem for me. Sometimes I break my study plans and it makes me feel unfulfilled most of the time. Okay, so this sounds like it's almost like you're wanting to do something, you're wanting to study, you're wanting to plan, and as far as like not following through on your plan. So I think that's pretty relatable to everyone as far as setting expectations. So my question, I think, to you would be like, what are those expectations? What is that standard? Are you asking maybe too much as far as like the realisticness? Like, are you being like, oh, I'm going to study for like 5 hours today and 5 hours every single day? Or is it manageable in terms of your day where it's like 30 minutes I'm going to study, 3 times a week? So I think creating manageable expectations to hit makes it easier us to get those wins, and kind of keep going forward. And so I think, I mean, what works for me is planning my day, planning my schedule, but not demanding too much in terms of that time frame and being kind of flexible in that approach. And so once you're getting those small wins, you feel kind of some momentum in terms of what you're doing. And I think that might help you out. Time management, someone's saying as well here. It could be time management. It really depends. And something else I wanted that just kind of came to my head right now is on the time management note is what time works best for you? So this is a huge thing. We're kind of on like the whole productivity thing right now as far as resilience, but yeah, in terms of like what works best for you, morning, afternoon, evening, do you have to wake up earlier? Do you have to go to bed later? Like for me, I like working on stuff in the morning. I like getting up, going to the gym, really tackling my day head on. And that works well for me as like a morning person, you could say. But if you're not a morning person and you want to work at different times, that's totally cool too. The biggest misconception. So we're going to go to Dennett. Probably just ruined your name. Sorry. What do you think the biggest misconception about being resilient in youth leaders? How can we fix it? Oh man, I don't know if I'm going to tackle the how can we fix it because I don't know as far as that. I want to be honest with you, but the biggest misconception about being resilient in youth leaders, I would say it's easy. This is an easy path and you're going to do it in a week, in a month. It's easy because social media tells you, because Instagram tells you, because it's easy on YouTube. That's the biggest myth. It's not easy. It's hard. What you're going to do is hard, and it's going to be harder for some than others. There's no question about that. There's no doubt about that. But it's not easy. It's going to be a grind. You're going to need grit and determination and a will and a why. And I think that's really important as far as resilient leaders. And that's a misconception. I think the generation coming up right now, I believe it's thought that things come really fast and really easy. We can call that like short-term mentality, where in resilience with leaders, it's really more of a long-term mentality. So looking into the future, doing things consistently for months and years. Just to give you an example, I've been training for 18 years in fitness and weightlifting. Competed in multiple countries for 6 different shows. And that is like that whole time period, like it wasn't like, oh, this is a really long time. It's just something that I love doing and something that I love being consistent at. But I'd had to be resilient throughout many, many years to stay consistent and to stay at that. So, something I see today in a lot of young leaders is they want it tomorrow. They want it right away. They want it now. And from my experience, that's not how it works. Go ahead, Yushal. Let's hear from you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So what I'm trying to say is I'm well understood, and I believe this can change a lot of my movements throughout the community as well as the society at large. But how well can I bring this impact and you insert it into me, to my community, and let them understand they have to come and deal with equal opportunities. As I know that we are facing these challenges, how well can I give it to them in a better way? Thank you very much.
How well can you give what to them? I just want to understand this question fully.
What I'm trying to say is this resilience, you know, when a person understands the concept, it is easier to bring impact to the community as well as the society at large. So what I'm saying is, people within my community are facing such types of challenges, and I would like them to change better with this type of leadership to understand what they can and how well they can achieve something. So I tried a lot, but they did not get it. Get it. Sorry, I'm sorry. They did not get it.
Don't be sorry. No, it's all good. Okay, I think I hear where you're coming from. So like, how can you kind of extend that resiliency into others in your community and around you?
Very good, very good.
That's kind of a tough one, you know. I think we want to, I don't want to say you're pushing anything, but we want to push things onto others, or we want to put that responsibility or take some of that responsibility from others when we want to support them and we want to see them thrive and we want to see them succeed and we want to see them do great things with their lives. And that's all good. But at the end of the day, each person really needs to kind of dig deep within themselves. And, you know, being resilient, we talked about these case studies. Yes, they had people around them in some different times, but a lot of it came from deep within. A lot of that came from really pushing beyond mentally, sometimes physically, but mostly mentally, beyond those challenges. And so I don't know how to answer it, you know, in the best way as far as like sharing that with the community, but I think it kind of goes back to that why of, you know, why are you doing what you want to do? Is it for the right reasons that you want to do what you want to do? And if you kind of have that that why, that's going to push you through those tough times. That's going to get you through that adversity. So hopefully that answers that for you. I'm just going to answer a quick one here from Danae again. Is it okay to take more than 3 years? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just quickly answer this one. As far as the 3 years, just to give you an example, I spent 10 years in aviation. I started flying helicopters in 2009, and I couldn't find a job. I couldn't do anything, like you heard in that earlier story, and I was really like struggling. That took me from 2009 to basically 2018, 10 years. 10 years it took me of getting fired, of getting laid off 8 times, of not getting into college the first time, all of these setbacks, a decade. And finally, after a decade, I kind of got my footing, so to speak. I wasn't getting laid off as much. I was really making a good income. I was kind of securing what I had in terms of that career and my expertise, but that took 10 years. So 3 years is not a long time in the long term. What were we going to say, Deborah?
Yeah, I wanted to remind you that there is one more question from Desmond in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So as far as resilience and consistency is one of the most challenging aspects of my life, is there any kind of strategy that can make this a little more easy? And what magnitude of task is feasible and within what specific time frame for you and for your average person? There's a lot of questions in there, Desmond. So I appreciate that. Thank you. As far as, resilience and consistency, I would say to answer this in the easiest, most simple, effective way possible, start small. Everyone thinks all these big things happen from making big decisions, from doing massive things, from taking risks, from doing all these bold things. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It really starts with small steps daily. So it might sound like to me that maybe you're trying to do too much in one way, you're overwhelming yourself, you're trying to take on too much in a day, in a week, and just bring those down, bring those expectations down, and just be consistent at it. So for example, like meditation, a meditation habit is like something I'm rebuilding right now. And something I do is 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day. It's not 10 minutes, it's not 30 minutes, it's not an hour, but just 5 minutes just to sit down and just to be with my my breath and my thoughts. And so I think kind of doing less, slowing down, you can actually do more. In consistency, just like the gym, of going to the gym, 5 days a week for decades almost now, 2 decades. It's all started with just going once, just showing up, going for 30 minutes, and then finally going another day and going another day. So rather than focus on the long term, focus on the day and keep it simple. Hopefully that helps you out.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. It has been a insightful, engaging, rewarding section. Oh, it was very interactive as well. Very, very interactive. We'd like to hear feedback from everybody, and Francis will be doing that for us. Also, Chris, sorry, before you go, can you just put the links to your contact, email, LinkedIn, and such in the chat box, so it's be easier for everybody to just copy the link from there rather than screenshotting.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. I'll post it right now.
All right, thank you very much. Francis, can
All
take
right,
over now.
thank you. Okay, thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much, Chris, for the wonderful session. It was really impactful and insightful. So because of time, I would not want us to wait much, because then we have some couple of questions that we'd like to hear from the participants concerning this training in general and this session as well. So I'm going to be sending a few questions in the chat. The first is what went well. That is, we're trying to assess the progress and the success, and then to look at how everything was going. So if you feel that there was a particular aspect that you enjoyed the most, maybe the interactive aspect or the video sharing, the codes and stuff like that. We have had different presenters. They come with their different or diverse backgrounds and different styles of presentation. So you can say one or two things that went well, or it may be the form of communication in the course of this program that went well for you. And the second question is what seemed tricky. So I understand that this is a digital platform, and for the fact that we're trying to bring people from developing countries especially, there are some challenges that you're going to face, maybe data connection, or you're trying to hop on Zoom and then you may be having some difficulties, or it may be as regards the presentation. So you can also let us know of that. And the third question is, what can we improve on? Because we always look at trying to improve our session, so that for next year, if you're having something like this, it should be an improvement on this one, and we're trying to incorporate all those feedback from you. But because of time, I will not be able to give you the time to answer the questions now, so you can take them at the back of your mind. You can send the answers to our emails, because we have been in communication. So those emails that we've been sending messages to you, you can respond to us. And for tomorrow's session, we are going to look at these questions in particular, because we have so far done everything about the substantial aspect of resilience and leadership. So tomorrow we are going to be looking at how to manage an event, or how to set up an event. So after listening to all these wonderful speakers, how to be resilient, if you have a dream, how to make that dream happen. So tomorrow we're going to be looking at how you can have a plan, and how to make that plan to become a success, how to manage an event from pitching, drafting a proposal, and carrying out your event, and also writing a final report. And tomorrow we're also going to be talking about how to apply for the Precious Fountain Foundation Impact Fund, whereby you can get a chance to pitch with us through your writing skills, so that we can look at what you have, and you can stand a chance of winning a $100 impact fund. So kindly take those questions with you. Of course, I can see some reactions there, so you can take them tomorrow. We are going to treat that. So finally, I would like to call on Uncle Sob to give his closing remarks, and also a vote of thanks to our speaker, Mr. Chris Wilson, who has done justice to the topic. It was so wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. We really enjoyed your session.
Right. I'm so happy to be here with Chris and Francis and everyone that's been here. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. Thank you for volunteering to spent this time with us. We appreciate you so very much. And we appreciate everyone that's stuck in here to this moment. Thank you all for being here. See you tomorrow at the same time. And tomorrow is our last day, so we'll be teaching on how to set up leadership events in your area. We'll be teaching on how to write a proposal, and you'll be funded with a $100 impact fund. If you submit very good proposals, we'll be looking at funding like 3 or 4 of them. We also have essay competitions going on. Please send in your essays. We really love them. We love the feedback. And it's right on the time. I will leave you now and say, see you next time and have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, everyone. Happy to connect with all of you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye for the day.
Thank
We look forward to
you very much,
connecting with you
everyone.
more and following up. Yeah.
Bye, everyone. God, I beg.
Bye.